I think it brings me over 70 schools, having visited between August 28th and now. And one was Burris Elementary School, an NES school. And the board member, Rolando Martinez, was very impressed with the difference between the beginning of the year and now. It wasn't bad at the beginning of the year, but you can see the quality of instruction has improved, the multiple response strategies, just the teaching and the learning. The kids were all engaged, but the effectiveness of the teaching was strong. Burris Elementary School, doing a great job. And then we went over to Roosevelt, also doing a good job. Some things need to be improved there with regard to quality of instruction, but they're moving the needle. And so I would say as a whole, when I think about where we've been and how far we've traveled in just 3.5 months, it's been an incredible journey and lots of success, lots of progress. I can see that. And so and we have specific data, by the way, around the quality of instruction. We'll take the NWA assessments in January and have even more to show for the progress that we're having. Keep in mind that the quality of instruction is the #1 variable, the leading indicator for student achievement. And so I watch that very closely. And we are all getting aligned in this district around what that means. And I can see that progress. The District of Innovation passed last night. I want to thank the DAC again, and also the board, of course. It gives us more flexibility and allows us to even be a force multiplier for effective teaching and for helping our kids get ready for the year 2035. Keep in mind that we are undergoing the largest and most important transformation in America today. The largest and most important reform effort is happening in HISD. That's why we needed Destination 2035. The District of Innovation Plan helps us do even more to help our kids get to Destination 2035. And so really want to be thankful to the community for approving the District of Innovation and the board for putting their seal on it last night. Let me pass the mic to Celeste, and then we'll take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. I'm Celeste Barreto Milligan. I'm a parent of 3 HISD students, so hello to CG&E. I'm here to share mostly with other families in our district that are just like ours, that the DOI for HISD is a good policy for kids. As a mom and an educator, I've always sought to center the impact on students in every decision that I've made. And I also want to be sure that local control is promptly returned to our district, and that we're returned to elected trustees for our governance. And then, so accordingly, as a member of the District Advisory Committee, I voted yes for the DOI, and then I asked the Board of Managers last night to do the same. And that's, as I said, because I believe that it's good policy for our kids. And respectfully, I expect Superintendent Miles to keep his promise to us to adhere to the guidelines written into the DOI. He's assured us that he will. And I expect the Board of Managers to hold him accountable to that. I want to say on behalf of myself that I believe the most important stakeholders here are our kids. And they're the ones to whom I feel beholden and will continue to advocate for. And as I said, I believe that these exemptions, now that they're enacted, are good for our kids, will get us promptly back to local control, because what's good for kids helps us meet the exit criteria. And I appreciate every single voice in our community who's spoken on its behalf and against it, because I think that without that rigorous debate and communication about it, then we can't come to conclusions that are best for everybody. But I think that we have, so thank you.
So we're going to get ready to do questions. So
thank you, Celeste.
If you want your question answered, and I'll call you on. All right, we'll start with you first, David.
Superintendent, what will be one of those changes that you're going to make now that DOI passes? What are one of the first changes you're going to implement?
I think perhaps the most obvious one is the school calendar. So we will bring some versions, some different options of the school calendar to the DAC first, and then we will also put out a survey. One, because we said in the DOI plan that that's one of the requirements is to get input, not just from the DAC but from the rest of the community. So we'll do that. We're going to push for 180 student-teacher contact days. I think that's also a limitation. This year can be no more. The 24-25 school year can be no more than 180 days, and not before the first Monday in August. So we'll follow those criteria, but that's probably the most obvious thing that we want to push fairly soon, because we need to put out a calendar so that people have plenty of time to plan their summer.
That means more school days during the cycle.
Yes, I mean, again, it has to go before the DAC and the board, but yes, my hope is that we pass a school calendar with 180 student-teacher contact days. Right today, it's 172 student-teacher contact days.
All right, who's yours, Megan?
So what does that mean in terms of teacher and other employee pay? Will they be paid extra for those days? Also, we know that there have been concerns this year as the teacher and staff calendars have changed multiple times. Is that going to happen next year, or, you know what I mean? What is sort of the plan to make sure that doesn't happen next year, especially with extra days?
Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by the teacher and staff calendar changing a lot. We tried very hard not to change much about the calendar we're in right now. It had 172 days at the start. It still has 172 student-teacher contact days. But to answer your question, the first question is, we are looking at the budget right now. We will raise teacher salaries. I don't want to give you an amount right now because we're still adjusting that. But we will raise, and what we promised was to have a competitive wage for our teachers. And so I suspect, I mean, it will be competitive. I think it'll be the highest in the area. So for teacher salaries.
But it wouldn't necessarily be like paid extra for 8 extra days.
So we're not looking at it day by day. We're looking at a competitive compensation package.
All right, go ahead, Megan.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the vaping exemption. First, like why this vaping law is, how it's affecting the district currently, why the district needs the exemption, and what the district plans to do now that we have this exemption.
Feel free to chime in.
I mean, this is one of the things, thank you, Superintendent Miles. This was actually one of the things that was a deal maker for me. I think that the law is unjust. You may know that in Texas you can arrest and jail a child as young as 10 years old. And so by introducing our kids for what is, in my opinion, amounts to a very common mistake, bringing a vape pen or having it in their possession, immediately sending them to a DAP situation opens the doors for them to kind of get into the pipeline for the school to prison pipeline. So as like, even just for me individually, I have 2 middle school boys. I would hate for them to be held accountable at that level for such a mistake. I'm going to hold them accountable. I'm their mom. And I don't want to see them enter the school to prison pipeline, especially as children of color, especially as at least one of them has an IEP. And we already know that our children of color, especially boys, and children who have IEPs are disproportionately punished. And so this allows us to exempt ourselves from what is already an unjust law. And I think there's other things that the community can and should do alongside of the work that we're doing here to undo that unjust law. But for now, it allows us as a district to opt out of that immediate and severe consequence.
Yeah, is there going to be, what will be, I don't know what punishments are, but what will be the consequence for vaping?
So the DOI plan now allows us to have more flexibility. So for some students, it'll be an in-school suspension. For others, it'll be out-of-school suspension. It's not, we don't have to automatically send them to a DAEP program. So it'll be just like a lot of progressive discipline plans. It depends on, you know, has this happened before with the kid? Is it an exception? Is there other complicating factors? There's always will be consequences, don't get me wrong. But we're able to be much more differentiated in our approach and not one size, you have to go to DAEP.
All right, I'm going to come to you after Asher, but Ms. Margaret has a question. She lost her voice, so I'm going to read it for Superintendent Miles. At last night's meeting, there was again mention that teachers are being bullied, yelled at in front of students. Does your administration investigate cases of this? I thought you previously said you didn't want a climate of fear.
Yeah, I don't want a climate of fear, and if people bring specific cases to the administration through the grievance process or through the executive director, for example, if they're afraid to go through their principal, they can go through their executive director. We'll investigate specific cases of bullying. I don't want to talk in the hypothetical because, and I know I may not see everything, but I work with I have a meeting with EDs every morning, every Monday morning. I have a meeting with the division superintendents. I train principals once a month. I mean, I see them a lot. So if there are challenges, and by the way, we have the teacher advisory council or committee every month. If there are specific challenges like that, we will address them. That's not right for a principal to bully any teacher or employee of it, employee, period. And so if that's happening, we'll stop it.
All right, Asher, and then we'll go back to Pooja.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having this meeting. And as Celeste said, it makes a lot of sense to me why the extended calendar will hopefully spur academic gains. I wanted to ask about the financial side of that because, as Pooja was asking about, like, there will be some change in compensation. At the same time, we've heard about expanding NES next year as well as enrollment drops that were expected this year. So, like, you've told us before the budget will be balanced, but can you tell us a little bit more about exactly how?
So it's a long question, but I'm going to give you the short answer. Budgeting process starts in January. When we get back from winter break, you will have a district action plan, clear plan of what our goals and metrics will be for the 24-25 school year. That then becomes the basis for division and department plans and their budgets. We'll have a district budget where the bottom line is no lower than $850 million fund balance. The departments then make their district action plan, tying their budgets to the action plan. We do, and I know this is long, but if you want a real answer, let me just give you a little bit more detail then. We do a process called 60-20-20, where we prioritize every department budget, A, B, and C. 60% are A priorities, B priorities, C priorities. And we make sure that we are then prioritizing our resources and making sure we don't go over budget. And that process is an iterative process throughout the spring, so that when we bring a budget to the board in May, it is aligned, it's tight, and we meet budget. If we have revenue that's lower because of lower anticipated student enrollment or lower state funding, whatever it is, we will stay within budget because of the process that we put in place. That's why I'm very confident that we can do what we say we're going to do, because we're going to prioritize the need.
And just a quick follow-up is, like, you've also said that this year there's no planned school consolidation, or no planned school consolidations for next year. You know, drawing that budget down does imply some level of cuts. Can you tell us anything about what might be, on the chopping block?
Yeah, I don't want to get too far into it because we haven't made the budget. That, we're planning on doing the budget. But you're right. I mean, the premise is right, meaning in order to expand in some other areas and prioritize, that means some other areas are deprioritized. And part of that is the amount of purchase services that we have. Right now, we've gone from somewhere north of $450 million in purchase services to $300 million in purchase services, and we're going to cut that down to somewhere around $250, $240 million in purchase services. We are not done with our efficiencies in central office, so there'll be, we're looking closely at where we can gain efficiencies there. And then we stop doing things that we should not be doing. You probably don't know that we, the district, the year before I got here, bought 170 buses we didn't need. That's not good. So there are many other things like that. We stopped the purchase service of $125 million for training principals, $125 million over 5 years, just to train principals on time management. Those are things we can cut and stop doing and put our money in our priorities.
All right, go ahead, Pooja.
Speaking of the budget, I know the Houston Chronicle today put out an article saying that the Convocation, including the musical, cost taxpayers nearly $470,000. How do you justify that expenditure?
So the Convocation was one of the best things we did at the beginning to line Destination 2035. Put yourself back at that time. Teachers had just come back. We talked about Destination 2035 and what that actually means for schools, both NES and NES aligned schools. And so that was our first opportunity to live stream, which is where the cost comes in, at every high school. Live streaming, takes some effort to do for every high school so that the message would be replicated clearly to all the schools, the Destination 2035 message. It was also a chance to inspire and help teachers feel good about teaching and about working for our kids. It highlighted several school groups, and they did a great job, by the way. And so we're going to do Convocation again. It's a good platform to really help our teachers, and we'll think about how much professional development we do at one site, but we'll also do professional development at the beginning of the year as well with some really good district level PD.